Goodness sakes.
Great
Goodness
balls
sakes.
of fire.
Are we recording?
Okay, we're recording.
Is this going to be
live?
Like video, so we need to be on our best behavior?
That's why I did my hair this morning.
Me too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you will call that doing, but like
It's a
I
do.
put every
It's a sort of
hair in a place, you know, it's hours of work.
Hey, guess what, though? We're back at the podcast table
Yes.
with a different guy. This is another Lance replacement.
Lance too.
Phil Rowley
Phil
is in the house.
Rowley. Now, you're from a foreign, faraway land, sir.
I am. I'm actually from two foreign lands, if you think.
Oh, that's true. Born in the UK.
Yeah.
You were born in the UK?
Born in Liverpool. Emigrated when I was 7.
Dude, I didn't know that. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Yeah.
It explains the fabs and blobs and boobies.
And eating giant breakfasts. And
Fish and chips and...
Goodness gracious. Yeah, I always thought you were Canadian. G'day, mate.
I am Canadian.
I got in trouble that, you know, the line in Dumb and Dumber where it's like, she's Austrian. And he goes, "G'day, mate." So I did that a few times in videos, and that's a #1 comment getter. That's not English. That's Australian.
And if you accuse an Australian of being English, look out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Phil's here. We've been doing some videos, some seminars, and we're back at the podcast table. It's been a hot minute since we've sat down here.
It's been insane.
We apologize for that. The summer's been nuts. We've done some big adventures.
See, that we have this thing called a fly shop, right? And in the summertime, what happens is people want flies.
A lot of
Therefore, we are very busy.
And your fly shop is, I can honestly say, is second to none from what I've seen.
There was a little bit of a pause, though, right there, Phil.
I got to remember, I also have
Second
relationships with other fly shops, so you're going to get that.
goodness.
What about my fly shop? No, this place.
All the fly shops are good, guys.
They are.
If you listen to Phil's podcast, he says that about everybody. So
No, you guys, we say, I walk in here and you can feel your wallet just here.
It's like the Matrix.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, but so Phil, why don't you fill us in?
Unintended.
Yep. On, you know, where you're from, kind of where you kind of came in the industry, and that we're largely going to talk about Stillwater, but let's kind of start off.
Yeah, well, as mentioned, born in England, emigrated when I was 7, Western Canada. First landed in Vancouver and spent about a year in Chilliwack, which is a town about an hour east of Vancouver. Then moved to Vancouver Island. My dad got a job over there, so grew up there, and then moved to the bright lights big city of Vancouver in my early 20s after school, and lived there for 35 years. And then now I live in Alberta, which is the province immediately one step to the east, for about the last 20 years, and got into fly fishing. Fished all my life. I actually started fishing in England when I was about 5 or 6. I remember the neighbor, Peter Hopley, took me to Sefton Park, and we fished.
excuse me, lad. Would you like to come and angle? Is that how it went?
Liverpool accent's a little bit, a little different.
Wait, there are different accents within the island? What the?
I know it's.
I was there for 3 hours once, and I didn't know my name for like 2 weeks after that because I didn't get any sleep. But anyway.
No, from Liverpool, you're Scouse, and I am not going to do the accent because I haven't practiced enough. It's
Oh, I haven't.
been too
That
much.
would have been good, though.
Yeah, but yeah.
Hey
so
there, a mate. Yeah, bud.
It's a cross between English and Canadian because we say "hey" all the time, just like you guys say "you all."
You all.
No, so and got into fly fishing in the early 20s, and just I remember the first experience of catching a fish on. I actually caught it on a dead drifted dry fly, which when you've had about 2 hours of casting practice is
not a bad-
an accomplishment,
Not a bad-
at least for me, and was, pun intended, hooked ever since. I'd never had a fish fight like that before. When you're fishing conventional, you get all the wetting tackle on there and fenders and pots and pans and all that stuff. That fight on a fly rod's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and living in BC, BC's got some excellent rivers, mostly in the southeast corner of the province, a few other places. And a lot of the coastal rivers are anadromous, so you get steelhead and salmon, so they're seasonal. But the central interior, it's got the lakes. BC's got, 20,000 lakes, I think it is.
Ooh.
So in that Kamloops area and up through what we call...
Never heard of it.
Yeah. it's that's the place to. It was the most accessible fishing, and I just got way into it. Right, I love the thing for me is you and I've talked about, Curtis, is the bugs, the entomology.
Yeah,
the learning of a whole new world underwater is like wow.
Because midges are sometimes big and sometimes little.
Yes.
Right?
Chironomids.
No,
chironomids, buzzers,
the most
bombers,
mispronounced word in fly fishing.
So many. That is true.
Crominid. Let's talk about all the ways you shouldn't pronounce it.
Crominid.
Crominoid.
Crominoid. That sounds like something you get from sitting too long.
Cromnid. But there is an I before the R, but I think that you can get rid of that. You can call it chronomid, but if you're like a freaking nerd, you're going to say chironomid. I just pointed to both Curtis and Philemon for those of you who are just listening.
Story about chironomid. So I was fishing years ago. We used to fish for sea run cutthroat in the early spring, coastal cutthroat right off the beaches. So we're driving from spot to spot, and I was driving. One of the guys in the truck was. He was always calling chironomids. So we would be, we all like Stillwater fishing. So we're kind of doing this stuff to pass the time until the lakes open up, and he's just chironomid. Another guy in the truck was very quiet spoken, but he's one of those guys when he opens his mouth, it's like rapier sharp, and just everybody's crying and laughter. And he just finally says, "For gosh sakes, Bill, what do you want? A Schreisler for Christmas?" And I just about put the truck off the road. I was laughing so hard. Right? So,
as a person who has two is in his name, I agree. Sometimes you have to go easy on the H.
Sheesh. Fly time.
Anyway, they're called chronomids, buzzers, midges,
all the same.
Chironomids, cromnids.
Those annoying, stupid little, lots of swear words there.
We were out there fishing. There was some mosquitoes that came up. We had to leave early. They were just everywhere, all the water. It's like, yeah, they're the kinds of bugs that don't have. It looks just like a mosquito,
but doesn't drill you.
Are they called diptera?
Diptera, two-winged.
Okay, two-winged. All right, there you go. I have contributed my entomological research for the past year.
So which entomology is important.
It is.
And we're going to do another podcast if you're listening to this one.
Yeah.
Very soon. Another entomology with Roger Gold. We're just going to put a plug.
So Roger is amped up about this one. He's ornery as all get out. They've taken his driver's license away and given it back to him.
At least
one
he has
time.
it back now.
He got a speeding ticket in his Porsche, and he's been talking to some other professors within the industry, but he wants to talk about
entomology dudes.
Yeah, he wants to talk about the conditional and situational changes. We're going to talk about moon phases.
Oh, yeah.
So
this is going to be one you do not want to miss.
Philemon, you might even want to watch
I will watch that. I love bug stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. This is what I do, Phil, as I interject.
No, that's okay.
Take us off the rails, and it's your job to keep your train of thought together, buddy.
I expect.
Okay.
So, and then, again, it was that love of entomology. My first book, The Fly Patterns for Stillwater, was there wasn't much in the way of dedicated fly patterns, 25 years ago for Stillwaters. And so I did that book that was combining an understanding of the food sources found in lakes and the fly patterns to imitate them. And that book did quite well, ran for 20 some odd years. And I vowed after writing that book I would never do it again. And now I've written 5 now. So
we were talking about books yesterday, right? So that's good. You're still giving good information.
Making stuff up.
Making good stuff, yeah. Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah. So real good.
So it all culminated with my latest. Well, I've got a new one out, tying flies with Phil Rowley and Friends, which is a compilation of all the. I've done the fly tying columnist for BC Outdoors for the last 15 plus years. So cross section of all kinds of patterns get featured in there. Either a particular pattern or a particular technique or material, but a lot of Stillwater ones. So I put them all together in a kind of a compilation. But the big one is that Orvis Guide to Stillwater Fly Fishing, the tome.
The Orvis Guide, they do a good job putting those big guides together.
Those are really good.
Yeah, that was funny because I know you work with Tom, and Tom, we were doing a book signing at that time the Edison Fly Fishing Show. It's Edison now. It was Somerset then, and
it's just Jersey. Here in Utah, we just call all of that Jersey. So
I was at the Jersey Show.
Yeah.
The other day.
So I was at the Jersey Show the other day, and some Canada gooses came over.
Anyway, easily distracted, the pair of us.
May or may not have talked a lot about Letterkenny like 2 days ago.
Relived all that. Anyway, so he says, we don't have a Stillwater book, and I think you should do one for us. And I went, oh, that's nice. But as you know, it shows there's a lot of discussion that goes on that never really amounts to anything. But a couple of calls, emails, and it started to, take life. And, I was like, oh, this is really going to happen. So, and it turned out, I think they were expecting about 75,000 words and 100 and something pictures, and I gave them 110,000 words and over 300 pictures and diagrams. They were like,
how many of those words were A?
A few. Go to the lake, A. Take your rod out, A.
Hey there, bud, A.
Go for a rip, yeah.
I apologize.
I think we just offended the whole country of Canada.
And I started...
To all my Canadian brothers, go buy a pack of Smarties on me, eat them, be happy. But don't bill me for
one of my favorite candies.
They're the best. The Smarties, like a Cadbury's.
They're not the
M&M.
Smarties that here in the U.S.
Oh no, they're like M&Ms.
Yeah, they're Cadbury's. Their chocolate's different because most of the candy bars that come out of Canada or England, Hershey gets the rights. Like other products, they get the rights for it. But no, they're real Cadbury.
It's chocolate. The candy shell, though. People don't talk about the candy shell on the Smarties.
The Smarties, and there's always "Do you eat the red ones last?" That was a commercial.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The red ones.
I think they're them very slowly or chew them very fast. That's the whole.
There's a little bit of a contingent with certain experience with green M&Ms here in the States, so we won't go over in the podcast. And then yellow candies are kind of always last place, in my opinion.
Yeah, they get the boot.
Yeah.
So that's why you should never fish a yellow chronomid. Back into entomology.
Yes, right. Thanks. Good set.
Oh, nicely done.
No, we should probably talk about Stillwaters. We'll talk about Smarties and Caramels and Mars bars.
Hey, we're talking about what we like to eat, and we're about to talk about what the fish like to eat.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what they do. They swim, eat, poop.
Yep. Occasionally get to make little fish, if they're good.
Yeah, really good.
I didn't think that far ahead.
Good. Except in most productive lakes, they can't reproduce, right? They need moving water. That's a lot of people don't realize that. So,
yeah, absolutely. So, as you've spent all this time in the Stillwater world, what would you say, like, to somebody who's considering getting into Stillwater? Maybe what are your top 2 or 3 reasons? Like what's hey, get into Stillwater because
and actually it's funny, I have a presentation that has this why Stillwaters. Some of the reasons are fish are bigger generally.
Oh yeah.
The bugs are bigger. We don't do tricos, we don't do any of that stuff. A 16 is probably
that's a really good
can't tie on your fly. Stillwater's for you, my friend.
Or go to Fly Fish Food and buy it there. Yeah. Smaller than 18, buy it. Other reasons, you're not subject to runoff. A lot of times with moving waters, runoff hits the region and it's done for 2 weeks to a month sometimes, depending on the snowpack.
Plus around here, often runoff coincides with the best Stillwater fishing.
Yes, it does.
So it's a great way to supplant what you'd be on the river, the blueing dolls and all that fun stuff in the spring. Runoff will start a little bit later. Time to go hit up the lakes.
Yeah, and they're right in prime. So, lakes do go through a turnover event, a mixing process, but they happen one-offs. They happen lake by lake, elevation, dependent size, lots of variables there. Other reasons, we don't do 7X, 2X, 3X.
That's something we can just rip that Band-Aid off right now. Like if you're fishing Stillwaters, the small stuff's 3X.
Yes, that's fine tippet.
Start with 3X, go up from there, but you don't need 0X. No. But
I've done it.
It's hopper season in Utah, right? And in Utah, everyone wants to fish a hopper on the lower Provo. So guys will be checking out with like size 10 or 8 hoppers and 6 and 7X leaders. I'm like, I'm not being nosy here, but are we playing? So I have to go back and get. No, I go take it out of their cart, put it back on the wall, bring it back in.
Yeah. No other reasons. Entomology. If you like matching the hats, there are a plethora.
Oh, yeah. I think that's probably one of the biggest things people don't really get before they come into Stillwater is, man, you've got a lot of really techie things that go on.
Oh yeah.
Bug-wise.
Yep, you've got scuds, leeches, dragons, damsels, baitfish, chironomids, of course, we talked about that, mayflies, caddis, crayfish,
sow bugs,
zooplankton, Oh, yep, sow bugs.
Terrestrials.
Yep, you've got those. That's one of the things I envy about you guys down here is the shore fishing opportunities you have, because that's usually a barrier to stillwater fishing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because everybody thinks you got to have a boat. Does some sort of watercraft help? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't need it. We were out earlier this week and we fished right from shore, walk and wade, wet waded.
So good.
Fishing dries. Most times in my waters, you don't get to fish dries, private access, muddy bottom, take one step in the water and you're up to your throat in white. Back cast issues with trees, weed beds that you just can't cast over, or if you hook a fish on the other side, how are you going to drag the poor thing back through that, all that kind of stuff. So that was fun the other day to fish into tigers and cuts, taking adult damsels, calabatus, terrestrial.
We took Phil to the Provo River to do that. Promise.
But hey, I will admit, when I'm not stillwater fishing, probably one of my favorite things to do is Euronym. Euronym. Because it's techie. It's like chironomid.
Oh, it is, yeah.
It's,
not
pattern
really
weight, leader
Island
construction.
weights, leader,
all of that stuff.
Lots of things. You got to mind your drift.
Appeals to my closet anal retentive self that I don't admit comes out.
I could see that.
Yeah.
No, that's fun. That's good times. I mean, you get a lot of people that get caught up on like the vernacular of fishing.
Yeah.
It's like, is Euro nymphing really fly fishing? And there's a big debate about that. It's like, who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah, it's fishing. I don't leave my house and tell my wife, "Good night, dear, I'm going fly fishing." No, I'm just going to go fish.
Yeah.
Well,
same with indicators. There's lots of guys that
I draw the line there.
indicators
No, it's not fly fishing. No.
Okay. But you'll fish a dry dropper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different.
It's one of the indicators. I really enjoy it. And the thing is, I think a lot of people also think, stillwater fishing is just trout. And the techniques you use for trout, you can catch pike on it, which I know you guys kind of like that fish. Walleye,
bluegill,
whitefish,
bluegill.
bass.
Oh, yeah, bass. Yeah,
all
absolutely.
that stuff is exactly the same. In my local waters where I am right now, it's early August. It's warm. It shouldn't be trout fishing. Oxygen's not good. We go chase walleye on the fly using the same gear, same techniques, and they're just like trout. They like the same structure. I've had people, they don't eat flies. I'm like, well, what do they eat? Leeches and minnows. I'm like, I think we could.
There you go.
I think we could cover.
We have a solution for that.
I think we have a few solutions.
and rainbows don't have that cheek meat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they are a good eating.
They release into the pan.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like you mentioned, one of the objections or obstacles to getting into fishing, and I'm not talking just trout, but, like you're saying, walleye or anything else, people think, well, number one, they think, I got to have a boat. And very often you don't have to. Like just last month, I was fishing in warm water for bluegill, just using chironomids.
Yep.
Little bit with an indicator, a little bit just kind of what you call naked style.
Yep.
And those same techniques, those bluegill were just on fire.
Yeah.
And you don't have to, you can wade in a lot of these areas. You don't need a fancy boat.
Here's something funny about stillwater angling is the shore anglers think that every fish is in the middle of the lake.
Yep.
And the boat anglers always think that the fish are on the edges. And guess what? They're on the edges.
Yeah, exactly.
But same as river fishing, right? Everybody's wading out up to their armpits, casting into the middle, and everybody in the drift boats going by is banging the banks.
Yeah.
Right? We're never happy where our fly is. It's always, we're always in the wrong spot.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day as well, and it's crazy because we have a boat. We have a few boats that we use in different things.
And it's very good.
They're very nice to have.
Yeah.
But out of the last, let's say, 2 weeks, we had Rob Edmonds here, and now Phil's here this week. I've fished out of a boat once out of 6 days or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
And I caught some fish.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that difficult. It is nice to have a boat. But I would say from a stillwater standpoint, if you're going to get into it, just go for it. I mean, there's so many good options. In fact, we will have our Intro to Stillwater video should release after this one. Or maybe, no, it'll be before this is released, where we go over kind of the basics of what you need to do to get out there. We even did a poll on our fly tying with Uncle Cheech. That was it, yeah? I think I did a poll on that one. And to see why people don't stillwater, or if they... So the majority of people were interested in stillwater, but thought lack of a boat was a showstopper.
Huge barrier.
And that was the biggest reason why people didn't get into it. And I'm like, wow, because you don't need a boat.
No.
literally the fish are, most of the ones that you're going to go for, you'd be interested in, are probably within casting.
Well, we fished strawberry, right? And we were literally banging the bank.
We were just on the bank. Yeah.
But the boat, because strawberry is rather large.
Yeah. To get around.
It's a mobility thing. Yeah. But you could have pulled the boat up and got out.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or if you'd like to hike, you could have got to the same spots.
Absolutely.
You'd probably still be hiking. But
Yeah.
I will tell you this, though, like, you can get into like a float tube for, $300 for a really nice float tube. So you can get out there. When we say boat, the more broad terms, watercraft.
Yeah.
So like, you don't need a boat like a bass boat or a motorboat or any of that kind of stuff. But, it is attainable to get Stillwater gear that will get you out, where the boats are fishing for not a lot of money.
That is probably, again, one of the bigger misconceptions. So if you did want to get a craft of some sort, there are so many options.
Well, and there's no one perfect watercraft. Like you, I have a few boats. I got 5 in the backyard right now that my wife is like, is something going to happen to one of those soon? Because I've got a couple I haven't used in years.
Teach and I need to get a new boat then.
Yeah. And I've got, I work closely with Outcast boats, and I've got pontoon boats and float tubes, and they all have their strength. Like, you can't hike into an alpine lake with a boat on your back.
Not as easily as a float tube.
I can't. Conversely, probably a body of water like strawberry, you may want to think you got to choose where you go on with a float tube, because you can get into some trouble if the wind comes up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So there's no perfect watercraft. That's the logic I use when my new boat appears in the shipping or in the garage, or I drive it home. Like, what's that?
Yeah.
Well, I need it.
They gave it to me.
Yeah, I didn't.
They gave it to me.
Yeah, I mean, I know people that'll go on classifieds or Facebook Marketplace, whatever, and get like an old pontoon boat and fix it up a little bit. You're spending $100, $200 or something, and now you're on the water.
Yeah.
So
here's the other side.
A pontoon boat is, Cheech, is
go ahead.
If you're a river and stream angler or want to dabble into lake fishing, you can use your pontoon boat to drift the river, and you can go you don't have to upgrade or change to get onto a lake. So,
and the thing is, like, you'll read online and people have very strong opinions one way or the other. And if they have a strong opinion against the one thing, it means that's the one thing they don't have, and they've never tried it.
Yeah.
And because they decided to go this way, it's better. Case in point, guys will spend thousands of dollars tricking out a pontoon boat with motors and fish finders and rod holders, pontoon or a
elevated seats.
Yeah. But if you get on, your marketplace, whatever app you like in your area, in like October, you start looking through, you're going to find a pretty nice boat for not
somebody's
a lot of
already
money.
done the work for you.
Exactly. If you can't afford to buy it outright, you can even get a loan on a boat, which are cheap. Anyway,
cheap, yeah.
So there are all
lots of
kinds of
good
ways to do it, and I'm not saying one way is the best way, even though it's just get a boat, but just have fun.
Yeah, get out there and do it. And it's, I guess the other thing is just the value. People come to the lakeshore and sort of scratch their head where to go, and because a river does have you can see, sometimes it's just, I can see the other side of it, so it's just more manageable. I can see areas where if I was a trout, I would stay and not stay, just for currents and things like that. So there's that sort of, it all looks flat feature.
Yeah, like when I was in college, I worked in a fly shop, and the guys there fish strawberry a lot. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was just so intimidating because it's this giant body of water. I called it Jedi fishing because I asked them, like, how do you even know where the fish are? But, now after I fished it for years and years, I've realized it's not that difficult. You kind of break it down into little kind of manageable chunks and figure out where the fish are in your manageable chunk. Mm-hmm. And you don't need the boat. It's nice. And this Strawberry Reservoir here in Utah, I mean, there's miles and miles of shoreline and probably fish within casting distance.
Well, that's where the majority of the fish are going to be, because there's some deep, you were telling me how deep some of the, everybody assumes
channels.
If it's 200 feet deep that every trout is 6 inches off the bottom.
Right, yeah.
Water chemistry, there's not enough oxygen down there for them. And rainbows in particular and cuts are a shallow water fish.
Yep.
So, you could be over 200 feet of water, but they're all 10 to 12 feet down, just stooging around it.
Yeah, it's like when we take the boat out, like we had Phil's on the water seminar. We were in with some people that were in float tubes, shore, what you name it, and they all caught fish. Mm-hmm. And from our standpoint, like, we're out there fishing with a nice boat, but a lot of what we were doing was very shore oriented.
or shallow.
Shallowish.
Yeah.
So even if you did have a boat, a smaller float tube, you could still kick out into deep enough water where these fish might be holding if it weren't in casting.
Yeah, when I do summer, I'd say as a fly fisher on lakes, you're best suited to fish water 20 feet deep or less.
Yeah.
And that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, that's where all the food lives, most of it, right? Deep water, you might have some leeches, some zooplankton, some chironomids. Get on the shoals where the sunlight actually hits the bottom and grows some weeds.
Yep.
Everything lives there.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So that's the Walmart, Costco, Superstore, whatever it is. That's where all the food's
Canadian Tire there, bud.
Canadian Tire there, but
Tim Hortons.
They could riff over there. Now you've got me doing it.
Sorry, Phil. You got to go out for a dart real quick there, bud?
No, stopped darts years ago.
Okay.
That's cigarettes, for those who don't know what a
Gotcha,
dart is.
buddy.
And also all the techniques. You can fish indicators. You can cast and strip with a variety of sinking lines, sweep lines. You can fish the naked technique, long leader, weighted flies, fish dries, all of that kind of stuff. You've got your whole presentation repertoire at your disposal. You fish deep, and it's fast sinking lines, sweep lines.
I thought about this. You know how I love fishing the sweep.
Yes.
If I fish that in the nude, would it be sweep technique or a naked technique? Because the answer is yes.
Technically,
see what I'm saying?
Because we use the term naked for, in floating line presentations because there's no indicator on the leader because strike indicators have become such a popular method. A, it works, and B, it's just fun to watch that little bobber go down.
But if I say, hey, I'm doing the naked sweep technique, that's a sign not to look.
I'm just visually thinking.
Don't visualize.
I think there's a Seinfeld episode where the lady's cleaning in the nude. So that's kind of the combo that Cheech is talking about.
Oh, I'm just trying to get the vision of Cheech in the nude out of my head right now. So
you thought about it way too hard.
I know.
maybe there's just a lot of megapixels to associate to that old brain in there. She's running Windows 95 in Canada up there. I remember back in the day, I had to twist Curtis's arm to come to one of my favorite Stillwaters, and I kind of learned how to fly fish on a Stillwater. And there's a really productive lake where I started. In fact, I was talking to my mom yesterday. She wants to come do a podcast.
Oh, that'd be
And
fun.
she's going to talk about the days where we'd show up at her house and we would sleep in one of the empty rooms, and there's a little cubby hole with a little mattress up on us. We'd make Curtis sleep up there.
I love that spot. It was nice and cozy.
So she brought that up. But anyway, we would go out there and we fished it. We crushed fish that day. And then we kind of had a group of buddies that we'd have to twist their arms. Like, no, you need to come try it. So we'd get a tin boat, and we'd have like 4 pontoons on the back of it and all go out and back. And we all didn't have gas money. But anyway.
Well, you're a bass fisherman too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Allegedly, you're a bass fisherman. And if you want to learn about fly fishing lakes, studying conventional bass.
For sure.
Especially if you want to learn how to read them, because fish are fish. Yeah, they have their quirks, but they all got to eat. They all need oxygen. They like to be protected when they're out there, so they like to be near structure, those kind of things. And just swap out walleye for bass. And those anglers, as you know, are tuned into their reading lakes, tuned into electronics, all of that kind of stuff. And there's some very good lessons.
Oh, yeah.
I say any angling skill translates to almost any other angling skill. So you're not gonna be like, if you go and start fishing conventional gear, it's not gonna take away from your fly fishing knowledge. Like
it's probably gonna help it.
Yeah, you got a lot of empty rattly space in there. Just
there's
some of that.
There's techniques and thoughts that are in the conventional world that directly apply to our world, and stuff that you're like, oh, I didn't think about that.
A lot of my streamers are direct. You
think about yourself, Kelly Gallup. They're studying Rapalas, how those fly, the coloration, the size, the movement. It's the same thing. When I mentioned earlier, fishing for walleye in the summer months. When I started to sniff around, because in British Columbia they're not very prevalent. How do you catch these things, right? And nobody in the fly side seemed to know. So I started studying what conventional angling was doing. So slip bobbering, that's a strike indicator. Fishing vertically with jigs, we can do that with fast sinking lines. We can call it dangling, where you're hanging vertically. Crankbaits, that's just casting and stripping, more or less, And, if you want to fish like a Lindy rig, fish a booby. Fish some kind of buoyant fly on a sinking line. So if you look at the method and just give it a little bit of thought, you go, wow, that's very adaptable.
Yeah, it's just all science and like physics. It's like
If a fish goes down, wait a minute, that's not soft plastic. I'm not touching it.
hold on, hey, Brigham, you're going to have to edit that part out. We don't say that here. Yeah.
Don't say the B word.
No, you just don't let people know that that's really how it works. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think there's some barriers there, and I think, Stillwaters have so much to offer, and a lot of them they're just not crowded,
right?
As compared to a river.
Yeah, that's like the main thing for us with Strawberry, and we typically, if we're fishing more, let's call them sensitive waters, we're not going to tell people where we are. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
But like Strawberry, I think it has the most angling hours in the whole state out of any body of water.
I would think.
It's huge.
Easy access.
Very easy access, incredible fishery.
Yeah.
Like I would say anybody who's even remotely considering getting into Stillwater, find a good body of water close to you and just go try it.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people in the last couple of years where we've really said, hey, let's focus on the Stillwaters, people that are just walking the shores of Strawberry or the other Stillwaters around and just having a ball.
Yeah.
Dry flies or nymphs, midge, whatever's going on. These people are.
Well, we had the student when we did the on the water event, right?
Yeah.
He caught the most fish, and he
was from shore. Yeah, that's a great point.
We told, like, when we saw, like, your guys, like, does he have a boat? Like, I don't know. He'll be fine. And then as he walked around, like, he's going to catch more fish. Than
Oh, yeah.
anybody.
Yeah.
We walked up to him, feels like, hey, how you doing there, bud? Yeah. So just throw your fly up into the wind. Yeah, just like that. Yeah, buddy. And then just let it drift down, and then set her up when the fish eats. Isn't that how
It was pretty well word for word.
No, but he had an eat right there. Right? So
No, I think right now, I think he caught the most.
Yeah, I think he caught more than anybody.
And had, he was fishing indicators mostly and missed a few, right?
Well, but the thing there, and this is what I think people should understand, is that because the fish are close and you're probably going to be a little bit more dialed in on the location, you're going to work the fish a little bit better, I would think. So, just right there, you're dialing in the depth a little bit easier. You're not as inclined to want to move out, where if you're in a boat, I'm just going to switch locations.
It's so easy to just be tempted by other. Yeah, you always think you're not in the right spot.
Oh yeah, I'm not in the right spot.
I gotta
not at the right depth, which is often the case.
Yeah.
But
you can spend more time moving than fishing.
Right. Yeah. So there's certainly a balance there. But
no, he did well.
Yeah, we definitely have more anglers, I would say, plying the banks of our Stillwaters around here, which is great.
Yeah, because you have a lot of reservoirs here with no backcast issues.
Right. Yeah.
Easy to wade shorelines, access. We fished the other day. There's your vehicle right up there.
Yeah.
You need something.
You don't have to be super far. You can if you want. You can walk.
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, you can make it as difficult.
Yeah.
Like anything, you can make it as difficult or simple as you want.
Well, like in the area we fished, we like to fish in and around the Narrows on Strawberry. There's a lot of areas that you can hike in there. It's not super convenient, but you can make a day of it.
would have to be a day.
Yeah.
Take your GPS.
You ride your bike around it.
Yeah. Some of those banks, though, that'd be a fun mountain bike ride.
Yeah, if you fell in, especially, it'd be interesting.
Well,
especially because of you
won't
e-bike.
You'll be hitting it with terminal velocity, but the water's deep enough that you won't strike it.
Well, you won't see your bike again.
No. That'll be a great piece of structure next year. I don't know what it is, but every time I go by that point, there's something down there on the sounder that looks remarkably like a bike, but it can't be.
I would say, though, if you have objections to Stillwater fishing, drop them in the comments.
Yeah.
We're interested to know what it is, because we love Stillwater fishing.
Kurt and I, we've been talking. We're committed to, we think it's an untapped, maybe a little biased, but it's an untapped resource that everybody has at their disposal. And again, not just for trout, for a variety of other species. And it doesn't matter whether you live in the west, the north, the south. I missed something on the east, I think. There's something around.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Easy to get to, and a lot of times untouched and misunderstood, I think is. And if, like most things in life, if you misunderstand it, you either don't like it or just won't do it. Or
another thing, we talked a lot about boats, but like the gear side of it also can be a barrier to entry, I think. And people think, like, when we're talking, we're going out with 10, 12 fly lines, we're talking about all this complicated crap.
Well, we are.
But at the end of the day, that's what I'm saying, Phil. Pretend like we're not for a second, all right?
There are certainly core lines, like
let me say this real quick.
Yeah.
Like, if you just have a 9'5" weight, you can use your floating line for chronoments.
For everything.
And then you could go get a $60 Type 3, and then you could fish lakes, right? In my opinion. So, you know, kind of like Euro nymphing, you don't have to have the rod or anything. You can just use what you got.
Yeah.
You know, but a sinking line probably needs.
Yeah, I
to
always
be
say
approached.
that. This, maybe you always ask me because we were talking in the seminar. I probably carry 20 plus fly lines with me if I can.
Yeah.
Just
They were all jammed into a bag this big on the.
only the paranoid survive is what I say, because I think Lance has said it once on a previous podcast. There's nothing worse than being with somebody else who's absolutely having the day of days on a line you don't have. Right, so
Very
you need
true.
that line.
Very
Flyfishfood.com. No, come down and get it. But really, a floating line, which most people have, they learn on that cast. They're fishing moving water, so that'll allow you to fish dries. That'll allow you to fish indicators. That'll allow you to fish long leader weighted flies. Probably a clear intermediate, because we spend so much time in the shallows. You control with that. You can, just cast it out and how long you let it sink, and then something in that type 3 to type 7 category and sink rate. And usually the type, if you're not familiar with it, 3 inches per second, 5 inches per second. Just depends. Strawberry, maybe a faster sinking line might be good, 5 or 7. But if you fish Henry's Lake, it's a pretty shallow lake. A type 3, probably even at an intermediate.
It always has to be intermediate and always has to be a little leech.
Yes, because it works. But
Right over the weed beds.
Right over the weed bed. No, you're right. Like you can, just like anything else, you can make it as difficult or as easy as you want. And the other thing is, you hear this with Euro all the time. It's like, oh, so you're switching over to Euro and we're not going to fish that other way anymore. It's like, no, it's just another tool.
yeah.
So like try Stillwaters for a little bit. Check it out.
Well, and it's, I told you I like to Euro nymph. That has impacted, particularly with that naked technique I talk about, the long leader. That was a way when we first learned to fish chironomids. Strike indicators were, we fished with an old air cell line. It was, those old lines, floated every second day kind of thing.
Yeah.
We used to make leaders out of Maxima tippet that we had to knot together in formulas. Maxima's great material, but not great for sinking line stuff. And then unweighted flies, and we'd have to cast this out and let it sink for a minute, 2 minutes. If the wind came up, you were done.
Yeah.
Because as more wind comes up, the more the lake starts to behave a little bit like a river. Not getting down the fish, not catching fish.
Yeah.
And nowadays we got so much at our disposal to fish better.
Yeah.
The floating line is such a valuable tool.
Yeah, and like yesterday we were fishing a local Stillwater. Lots of good damsels, some calabatus, midges all over. Did not even, at least I didn't remotely even consider a non-floating line.
No, you'd be in the gunk.
Dry flies, washing line technique with the dry fly and a nymph, if you needed to, another nymph. And you can really do that on most still waters, depending on the time of year and the location, but very versatile. Yeah. So if you've got your 9'5" weight floating line, and that's what you have, you're good. Just go do it. And then once you, like Cheech was saying, I was really an anti-Stillwater kind of guy because of that. Sorry, this is just let me soap my mouth out.
Here it comes.
And I had fished, I'd fished lakes and I liked it, but it was just kind of daunting. But we went to a lake and caught a ton of fish. And then we would go back and kind of fine tune it. And then I started to get, all right, now I got to get a sinking line. And it was a gradual process to the point now where.
No, what you did at first is I think you bought like one of those lines with all the interchangeable.
Oh, yes, the Versatip.
Oh, yeah.
And I think
that was not very good.
Like, okay, I'm getting sinking.
Yeah,
good for travel, but all that loop to
not
loop
great.
stuff,
Yeah, I agree with you. Right,
not the same. But I did. I was
serious. Sounds good.
So I started with that floating line setup because that's what I had, and I think the next line I started fishing with just a traditional sink tip, which I'm not a fan of in lakes. That's just me personally.
Yeah, same.
Don't like how it presents and casts and all that stuff. But that's what I had, and then you start adding new lines. You trickle them in. You don't need to go out and drop by 25 different fly lines.
And find a reel that's affordable so that when you buy spools for them,
that's a big deal.
Interchangeability. There's lots of spools, those composite spools that you can get the reel that has 3 or 4 plastic, so you can carry
like
3 lines right
the
out
Hardy
of the box.
Ultra Disc cassette comes with the reel that has a spool on it plus 2 additional spools.
Yeah.
Really reasonable.
Clearwater. Orvis, the Clearwater cassette one.
And then the 3-pack Lamsons. Like the Lamsons Liquid and Remix spool is like $75, which is...
Yeah, it's very
your
reasonable.
reel in lakes is really a line storage system, right? Like everybody likes to talk into the backing, but it's, it happens, but it's not a regular daily event.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know, mostly it's 100 yards of backing, not so much for a running fish, just to build up that arbor so you get more.
Yeah, that's partially why Cheech and I have converted more to the larger arbor reels.
Just gather more line?
Gather more line.
Yeah.
Strip line off, gather more line.
Yeah.
Yep.
Circle's bigger.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let circle not be broken or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you can definitely get into, long length fly rods or 9.5. I like fishing 10s, even a little longer.
Yeah.
They have, people say, why that? Well, it's like Euro nymphing. There's leverage. You could argue tends to throw a more open loop with, complex
longer leaders, lots
stuff,
of flies,
less tangles. Yeah. You can steer and control fish around, when you anchor a boat or have a boat. Fly line loves to find fish. Love to wrap fly line around anchor ropes, motors, transducers, electric motors, cleats, you name it, they'll find it.
Yeah.
I use a lot of roll casts when I indicator fish because it's a tangle prone system. Longer rods, better to throw indicators with. So there is some, if you get into it, but as we said earlier, you don't need to do that. I don't think.
Well, at least you don't need to do that at the beginning.
No, and
you
I
can
think
do
that
it
could
gradually
be
over time.
If somebody went in, I'd be, as much as I have all the gear, of course, I'd be saddened to hear somebody got out of it because of all what they thought they had to buy. I'd rather just keep it simple. Learn to love stillwater fishing as you and I do for what it is.
Yeah.
And then start growing with it, right? Because you want to make informed decisions. That's where they can come down a place like you guys have here where they can get informed answers from Lance, who likes to stillwater fish, yourself, Cheech, the rest of your staff, and they can give them the advice they need and make it feel good about what they're doing and how they're using it. Yeah. So,
what other considerations? So, like incentivizing people. We talked a lot about the obstacles. The incentivizing. You mentioned size of fish.
I just had a thought that went along with that. Sorry, I was trying to think of how to word this, but like we're talking about all these different lines, right? And I see it all the time where we'll do a video of like, say, a midge tip or a parabolic or a type whatever line, and someone comes in and gets it, and like a week later they come in and say, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, how are you fishing it? And so when you buy a new piece of gear, it's best to kind of learn how it's supposed to work because I think that people see, sinking line, that one goes under the water, I'm good.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it.
There is.
Midge tip is the case in point like that. I can't touch a fish on the midge tip. Well, how do you fish? Well, I cast out as far as I can, and then I got this real good technique where I do 2 kicks and 1 twitch and 2 kicks and 1 twitch. I'm like, okay, so you're trolling. What you could do is just go get an ugly stick from Walmart and put your fly on the end of there, and it'll do the same thing. So
plus you're pulling it and everything is going up at your you can fish trolling. You can fish a type 7 and keep a fly a foot.
Exactly. So that's what I'm telling you. Like the different density fly lines are designed for a stationary presentation.
Yep.
So try to keep as still as you can. And this is also the time where you have to practice your casting.
Yes.
If you can't cast further than 50 feet, you need to go to the park. You need to film yourself. You need to see the stroke that you've got is not the Brad Pitt stroke that your mom says is beautiful. It sucks. All right? And you got to figure it out. Right? You got to get yourself sorted with your cast before you really want to get on
no amount of equipment's going to fix poor technique. And when I do schools and guide on stillwaters, if they can't cast, they're going to indicator fish because I want them to catch fish. It's a great method. It controls 2 of the most common, I think, struggles people have when they're presenting is they don't let their fly sink long enough because most of the food is at or just above the bottom, and they don't retrieve them slow enough. And that indicator controls the depth because from once it settles to once you cast again, it's going to fish at the depth you set it at. And you have the choice in the retrieves of moving it or little, a lot, not at all. And again, because that indicator doesn't allow the fly to sink down, you don't have to strike that balance like you do with cast and retrieve. But when you're fishing cast and retrieve, the more water you can cover, the more fish are going to latch on and follow. Because particularly with sinking lines, they love to follow. And then right at the end, you go to pick up and cast, boom, you get banged. Yeah. Right? Because that fly changed speed and direction as you raise the rod to cast. And that's why we fish that technique Lance talked about too, the hang, where you're always don't be in a rush to cast, bring it up, look for your fly. And as we saw on Strawberry, and those cuts stick out pretty good. and they come rocketing up, and it's pretty exciting, right?
It's awesome. I mean, having a hit when you're on the hang like that, it's like, rip the rod out of your hand.
It's a good reason to have a 10-foot rod.
Yep, that's another reason.
And it's a good reason to have stronger tippet.
Yep,
because
they will go. Yeah, when they eat,
you will turn into a fly donation person.
That's what
I would say. Like from a excitement standpoint, I really love the Stillwater hits.
Yeah,
because it's visual a lot of times, but also it's just electrical. Like, just they take it and now they're like, I'm out of here. In rivers, fish can kind of move in 2-3 directions, right? Stillwater's like 360 all over.
Usually under the boat and around the anchor.
Yeah, it's on.
And you're like,
yeah. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, it's I think people, they're just overwhelmed by the need for a boat. How do you read these waters, the equipment requirements, and like any discipline, fly fishing, there are those people, you can go right off the deep end and buy everything.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about, the line doesn't work. I years ago, I did a school out at Falcons Ledge, and I had a gentleman who had a Type 5 line, and it's not working. I can't catch fish with this. I said, okay, we had the benefit of fishing from shore, so I could see what he's doing. We were fishing off a rocky ledge, so there was some deep water to explore it with. And I watched him just made a cast, and as he hit the water, he's pulling it. I'm like, you just spent money for a line that sinks at 5 inches per second, and you're barely 5 millimeters under the water. I said, it sinks at 5 inches per second. It's going to take just a little bit longer than 2 seconds to go 1 foot. Let's go down 10 feet, so 10 times 2. Let's let it sink 20 seconds, and then start retrieving.
That's where you lost them, dude. You do math in the water, and they're just like,
but let it sink. That's you could even go just 10 seconds. I call it factors of 5, like the 5 count rule: 5 seconds, 10 seconds, explore. And the logic I do with that, a lot of times you cast out, you let it sink, you kind of look around, and then start retrieving. You get a fish, and you want to duplicate that because fish in lakes tend to be sensitive on depth and opportunistic on food, and you can't duplicate that, right?
We were on Henry's Lake one time. It was day 2 fishing, and everybody fishes the same section of water for 5 days in a row, right? So we absolutely smacked them the day before. Just stupid. And we were using all the British stuff like the fabs and everything. Day 2, we roll up, and we get the boat all set up, and I make a long cast, and I put my rod down for a second. I grab a drink, and I look up, and like all the boats are like, oh, these guys again. And they're looking. And so my line was settling the whole time, right? So I pick up my rod, and I just do one strip, and it goes, and I'm like, I don't know, sorry. But it was like that all day. Like,
what are you doing?
We had a totally different technique, totally different flies. We were fishing just on the outside of where all the other fish were. So if there were going to be fish in this deeper water, they're going to be moving in and out to this weedy section. And
they happen to be bigger, I think, largely because of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, and it was just dumb luck, but it was my second time ever fishing Henry's Lake.
Yeah.
Right? And so just with having knowledge of the lines, how they work, some basic flies, and then kind of a general understanding of what's in the lake food-wise to just barely match the hatch enough, but not so much that you're nerdy about it, like you two. Anyway, and then you go and you pretend they're fish, right? They're fish. Make them eat.
That's right. No, that's true. You can overthink this to the point of paralyzing. Analysis to the point of paralysis.
Well, and that's why it's like, just get in there and do it. I mean, it is literally as simple as taking your 9-foot 5 weight down there, kind of get an idea of what's in the water for food, and then go for it.
Yep.
And like I mentioned, we do have an intro to Stillwater video that will drop, and we'll probably have a link here and below. Phil also has a website,
Phil Rowley
philrowleyflyfishing.com, and as excellent resources. You still have all the entomology stuff on there.
And got fly patterns, and then we've got like you have got YouTube channel. We work together. Going forward with that stuff, so that's exciting. We're all committed to trying to grow this sport, and grow this sort of niche in the sport, because it's fun. It
is a lot of fun. I think not too many people that have done Stillwater come back and say, I just didn't like it. There's just a lot to really, really like.
It's the only people that have a bad time Stillwater is like I'm gonna kind of half.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. and they kind of go out, throw a few casts. They don't want to move around. They don't want to change flies, a lot of stuff. So just like any other type of fishing, if you really want it to work, it will.
Yeah, and you have to spend a little bit of time.
I would say just try and, weed beds are always good, right? Because weed beds provide food through photosynthesis, techie stuff, oxygen, and protection. They feel safe in there, right? They cruise in there. They use that camouflage, all that kind of stuff. They're always
so
good.
The Canadian fish feel more comfortable with the weed.
That's right.
Okay.
Ever since we legalized it, yes.
Cheeto fly incoming.
Yeah, so they're great places to find fish, that kind of stuff. Points of land, drop-offs. And rather than focus on fly, and I'm like you guys, I'm a fly tower.
We're
I
fly
have
fiends.
more flies than I care to admit when I'm on the water. But think about, the analogy I use is I call it DRP. Think about the depth of your presentation, how you move the fly, and then pattern. They're all important. They're like 1A, 1B, 1C.
Yeah.
So R stands for retreat.
Yeah, depth. Is my fly at the right depth? Again, most people don't let their flies sink long enough. We talked about that sinking line analogy. Retrieve, they're ripping it. I always joke some of my most challenging students or clients are streamer fishermen because you almost got to medicate. You need to slow down.
We need to send you out with old Brigham. Not only is he a streamer fishing, he also doesn't know how to listen. So good freaking luck.
And then the pattern. And as with any discipline in fly fishing, anglers can be pretty secretive. What are you using? A fly, right? And that's the most, and they can tell you whether they're being honest, but they all have these crazy names, like a cheech leech. You know what that is. I know what that is. You do, but somebody new.
Hey, if you don't know what a cheech leech is, turn it off right now, okay? I'm not putting up with this anymore. If you don't know what it is, Google it right now.
Let's say a chimera. So,
Everyone needs that. This is a great segue.
We're into the weeds.
Yeah, now Cheech will be quiet. Go ahead.
And, they'll tell you that name. It means nothing. It's irrelevant. Or they'll out and out lie, or less than, but they will, I notice you're catching a lot of fish near the bottom. Yeah. Or in the case of an indicator, I'm a foot off the bottom. Are you moving it at all? No, I'm twitching it every once. Fine. That's all I need. Because when you start linking in better understanding of entomology, time of the year, you can start knocking things off the list, again, with a little bit of practice and experience and just a willingness to learn.
Well, that's a great example because the other day, Spencer and I were out doing some filming, and we were trying to dial in where the fish were at first, and Spencer's over here, and he's just raking them in. I'm like, what the heck? So I'm like, all right, and we were using indicators. Yeah. So I said, how far down? Got, what I thought was at depth. We were using basically the same flies. Literally everything was identical. Yeah. And it kept that way. And I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong? Well, we got our leaders next to each other, and there was a 6-inch difference between the indicator distance to the fly. So I elongated the indicator so I could get the flies down a little bit further. And what do you know?
Yeah, and that can be because those lakes are so productive. And those, you talk about chironomids, right? Yeah. They eat them by the truckload. They're like jelly. It's like Pac-Man down there. But
I can relate.
Chase one 25 feet and clobber it.
Right.
There's no reward in that.
Yeah.
Like it's all calories expended versus calories. They're on weight gainers, I say, not like Weight Watchers like we have to be. So they're just, and they're not going to, but you put it where they're going to basically swim into it, they'll eat it all day long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think we
could go on for this
past an hour almost. Yeah. So, so like we said, Phil Rowley fly fishing.
Are we doing the closed captioning for the Canadian language?
We probably will need to. Yeah.
And maybe some for my Canadian.
Y ahora empezamos en español.
Although I didn't hear any you all, so that was pretty good.
You all. Yeah. Well, we were trying to say use to make it more. Use guys.
But yeah, if you have any suggestions, questions, comments, drop them below. We're just like we said, we're trying to, I think, find a way to get people a little bit more jazzed up with Stillwater. It's so fun. Lots of opportunities out there.
Lots of fish.
And really fun.
Yeah.
We're not just
sunfish to carp to catfish to, if it swims in a lake, you can catch it on the fly.
Just remember, you're smarter than the fish.
Yes. You're dealing with something with the brain the size of a pea, which is probably an insult to peas.
Yeah, it's an insult to peas, but just don't think about that when you get skunked. It makes you feel bad.
No, I often joke. I said, if Oprah Winfrey still had her show, if you were to put the trout on the couch and why do you do that? It'd be like a 4-year-old. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he did it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know.
Yeah.
They just instinctive. I think we give them that sort of. It's not Stephen Hawking down there. We're not
I
trying
can
to-
relate because I instinctively eat a lot.
Yeah,
You know,
you and me
it's just get after it there.
Yeah, do you do these in black, slimming black?
Swimming black. Okay. Now we've heard it all.
Oh, heavens. Yeah. So, and we will have our next podcast soonish. So stay tuned for that. And we'll get better at them in the non-fishing. We've been doing
Really
that. So
Brigham's fault.
let's say that. I would agree.
We,
He needs
we
to
have
just
all
get
these
with it.
awesome ideas, and
He just needs
we've
to
been
get us up here.
We've been sitting here before, and he just doesn't show up.
It's like,
And
where are the mics?
Yep.
Why are the lights not on? How do we
We're
turn
a
them on?
union,
could do a
and we
podcast
don't.
every day.
We could.
There's nothing but time when you run a
Phil,
business. right?
Phil.
Hey, so much.
Okay, good. I'm glad there was a little bit of jest in that because you can't. All right. Because these people hear that, and now they're going to say, oh, "Okay, where's the Friday version?"
Yeah. Oh yeah.
One a day. Could you imagine that tempo?
If that's all you did, I bet you could do
We
it.
might run out of stuff to say.
Yeah, I would think.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Allegedly.
thank you, Phil. Check out Phil's stuff. We'll be doing some more stuff in the future.
Yep.
Phil's a good buddy of ours. Yeah, so stay tuned. Drop those comments and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to us, podcast or YouTube, do it.
Subscribe.
It helps us out
It's
immensely.
well worth it.
Yeah.
It's well worth it there, bud.
It is by.
I know.
All right, we're done. Let's go for a rip.
We're doing a podcast the other day.
And we're out.